So now let's welcome our speaker, Shafi Yusuf, Head of Digital Transformation at Bank of the West, which is the US entity of BNP Paribas, which is the fifth largest bank in the world. Prior to that, he was leading technology and operations at Citi. It's a pleasure to have you with us today, Shafi.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for such a nice job you guys are doing and bringing key topics of value to the audience around the world. And that gives me delight and pleasure to share with you some of the experiences and some of the opinions as well on my personal as well as professional basis. So happy to join.
Thank you. And so from managing demands for customer support to processing large volumes of documents, corporations are actively seeking ways to ensure productivity is keeping up with the fast changing pace of, guess what, our new normal. So now, as corporations adjust to the drastic shift in conducting business, automation is becoming even more important than ever. So Shafi, when you think of leveraging automation for increasing efficiency and reducing costs, what kind of technology first comes to mind?
There are many. I mean, we are sitting in the technology capital of the world, right? So we drive on the highways and see around hundreds of banners displaying new technology, and everywhere you go is technology. So we are inundated with lots of technology, good technology, to basically help us do more for less, be more efficient, be more effective. So I think the answer to your question would be all the technology tools that can meaningfully and intelligently take the robot out of the humans, by which I mean redundant, mundane, heavy processy job that can be done in an automatic fashion. Those tools are pretty effective these days. You don't have to change core technology to achieve those ambitions and goals very quickly.
Okay, so I know AI is definitely a buzzword that is an umbrella for an array of technologies, including those that automate business processes. But the key here is intelligence. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. I think the intelligence word is a broad term. In this context that we are using from a process automation and doing things faster, quicker, safer, and more accurately, three or four things really are handy. AI is definitely a buzzword as well as very useful um, development in last 10, 15 years. It is still maturing. But let me give you some basic examples where the automation can use a simpler, faster, better tools that are now more established in the industry. One would be your RPA. That's simple definition is robotic process automation. What it does is that it can take structured information, what humans do with their eyes and 10 fingers, can do that automatically, digitally, if the information is available to the robot machine or digital robot. Then you would have smart workflow, without which you can't really complete the end-to-end process. There are things that can happen in the core system, and then you need outside the core systems that human operates. So in the old days, it used to be forms, faxes, emails, send around, people look at it, do something, then they use another system to further capture the values and let it go through at the end of the day. So human fingers, eyes, paper, forms, all that could be synchronized and orchestrated with a smart workflow. So RPA, smart workflow. And then the intelligence part really comes into the play when the structured information presented in a different uh, ways at times, the machine or the software should be able to pick it up. And that's called machine learning, which is a lower form of AI, but it's very helpful in terms of understanding what information has come in a different way and how to handle that. Then you take two other components that basically completes the intelligent automation toolbox, if I may use that term. That would be your natural language processing, what we are saying right now. If some machine could listen to this conversation and pick up the actionable words out of it and take it all the way through the processing part of the process, that's natural language processing. And the third is we have all experienced chatbots. Chatbots basically in front are the interface that can take human instructions, take it backward, and then either use smart workflow or the RPA and have those processed. So I think I've said a lot, but if you boil down to basic terms, these are easier, simpler tools that could be used to create automation outside your core system that can pay off very quickly. It's not difficult. It's not complex. It's just the technology has improved so much tremendously over the years that one can use these to benefit day-to-day processing of the work.
Okay, so with the tech that you previously mentioned, natural language processing, robotic process automation, what are some examples, some use cases of how Bank of the West is leveraging these technologies?
So before I go there, I think the larger question would be that why should any company or those who haven't started should consider this? I mean, life is going on pretty well. People are doing their work. Businesses in many cases are growing. You're making money. So why bother? I think the larger question to the topic of your agenda is COVID-19 has changed the way we are right now even dealing this. I would imagine in the good days or the pre-COVID days, this may have been an in-person session somewhere in your nice, good-looking office where hundreds of people would have gathered and then had a toast of glass of wine afterwards. Now we are doing this digitally, sitting in our homes and addressing anyone attending from anywhere in the world. So look at the efficiencies of this particular automation. We are gathered together digitally, automatically, in faraway places where people did not need to fly. Efficiency of time, people joined at 9:55, they'll be out at 11:30, no travel. So if you take this particular example and take it into the context of the work that used to happen versus how it will happen going forward, the automation tools are critically important even more now than they were before. So companies need to think, those who are beginning on this journey, they need to think about it that, and not to be overwhelmed and intimidated that this is going to be difficult and another big investment and we will never get there. I want to encourage everyone to think that this is very much doable. The fact that we are doing this particular conference through this mode is a testimony to automation and digitization.
Got it. And so you mentioned COVID-19, but of course, how does it even impact the automation decisions for businesses, if even at all?
Um, Good question. That's the question that the companies and the folks have to first really sit down and brainstorm. What work do we do or we used to do or we need to do that are heavy human dependence, at the same time don't require close coordination, people to people, in terms of decision making and judgment decisions. By which I mean, say, if you want to sit in a room and discuss that whether orange color or the green color will look nice in this particular logo that we are making, and people need to collaborate a lot, putting different palettes of the color on the image and make voting and all that. That's very human dependent task and judgment oriented. But let's say that if you want to pick up a customer's credit card application, which essentially has 10, 15 data elements, and every customer needs to give you the same data. And today's time, everybody's giving it online. So I'm not saying we have paper form days. Don't take me wrong on that side. The information is coming electronically, online. Customers are entering your credit card application details, name, social address, date of birth, income, address, phone numbers. That's basically the information. But now how that information translates into customer getting a card in between what all happens is somebody picking up that information from one system and entering into a decision system. Then from that decision system, is it somebody's entering into a card, creating a card manufacturing system, and then the card goes. So there are three-step process. And if in those three-step process, two people are picking up the same information every single time and putting it in the same system every single time. That's your use case. So we have to think through, people who are designing companies to automate is to basically divide the task in understanding that what all are the steps that are robust, straight, consistent, structured every single time. Those pieces that are being done by humans can easily be now automated with these tools that I just mentioned: RPA, robotic process automation, smart workflow. So the data is the key to everything. Whatever we do, is data flowing automatically or needs to be picked up by a software instead of 10 human fingers and place it where it needs to be placed? That's how I think the answer to your question is, how can a company start thinking about automation?
Got it. And so it sounds like that's the key for businesses to develop an automation strategy. But what about how to even approach their cost savings analysis?
Uh, Sorry, what service analysis?
The cost saving analysis, how to start thinking about, leveraging technology and automation specifically in order to reduce costs.
Yeah, there are three or four things that will go into answering that question smartly. One, how many times such a thing happens? So that's the key to it. If five people are picking information from one system that I mentioned as an example, picking up credit card information that a customer just submitted, and then posting it into another system, let's say, and you have enough volume, say 100 customers apply every day for your credit card, and that takes up about five people, what, 7 hours a day, 35 hours of work. So first of all, you need to know what the volume is. Secondly, you need to know, obviously, how much does it cost you. Thirdly, the ease of doing that particular process into using these new tools that are much easier to implement. What would that cost you? And that doesn't cost a lot. The setup is fast these days. You can set up all these tools in the matter of 3 to 5 weeks, or 6 weeks, at best 8 weeks, depending on your environment and the technology infrastructure that you have. So that's not very costly. There are myths around these tools and implementation that you need big consulting firms and big technology firms and lots of people who are expert in designing the solutions and all that. While that may be true to some extent, it is not completely needed, I would say. I wouldn't say it's completely true. It's not needed. Companies can start toying with small ideas and very quickly realize that there's a cost benefit that can be derived by using these tools to automate the process. And in most cases, my experience is that the payback is 6 months or less of any time and money spent on developing those solutions for the automation. But the key over here is that how many times does that happen in a month, in a day, in a week? So you don't want to really automate 3 contracts, big real estate commercial contracts that you are getting in the forms of yellow envelopes from your broker 3 times a month. And you say, okay, this has come in the paper form. Let's scan it, digitalize it, then extract the data, and then put it in the system where the lease management happens. If it's only 3 in a month, you don't want to really go about automating that. It probably is not worth it. So the key to the cost benefit is really how frequently the process happens that can pay back when you automate. That's the key to the question.
Got it. And so intelligent automation, consuming structured and unstructured data, processing the information, synthesizing it for analysis, and then even making recommendations. And so we know efficiency, productivity, and cost savings are all positives of automation. But what are the challenges businesses can expect to face? And can you offer any advice on how to tackle these challenges?
Yes, indeed. So I would divide that question into 3, 4 parts of subcomponents in terms of my answer. That before you undertake this automation journey, it has to be really well thought through from a buy-in of the management perspective, that everybody's committed to it. Everybody wants to do it. Everybody is believing into it, that this is the right thing to do. It is needed in the organization. And at least at the executive leadership level, it is understood that it is a value driven investment and value driven time that we will now commit to it, not spend, but commit. Commitment is more important than the spend, because the spend automatically pays back as things start happening. So that's not an issue. The issue is really the commitment. So the operating model in which the businesses operate today and exist post COVID needs to be recalibrated. Inserting this automation is just not going to be say, okay, fine, you just add another poster to your wall and the wall starts looking more colorful. That's not really what it is. It is change in your culture from an organizational and operating model perspective that leadership has to first buy in, agree, commit. Once you are there, then you need to look at the whole company's processes holistically. Now, these are the buzzwords or big things that I'm saying. It doesn't mean that you have to do it in 1 year, just looking at everything before you start doing any work. But the point I'm making is that it has to be holistic. Everybody has to be open to be evaluating their processes in terms of what are the good candidates for automation, smart automation. And then once you have that inventory, or you are building up that inventory of processes that are good candidates, prioritize them as quickly as possible. And the scale of prioritization with which you will manage those automation would be from easiest to the hardest. Don't go even the most attractive, most valuable, most interesting, most shiny process in the organization that could result into big benefit, millions of dollars down the road, but it's the most complex one. Do not attempt that. The chances of failure are tremendously high if you go after the big value prize with most complexity, because you're learning. That's the key. The organization hasn't seen it. It's learn and grow, like the way your company's name is plug and play. I would say learn and grow. There is no shortcut to learn and grow in this journey. There are no ready-made solutions that you can buy, plug and play in your company. They have to be organically done in your environment, in your company, according to your systems, according to your people's abilities, desire, and ambitions. That's how it works. So quickly start prioritizing, do few, and show the success. Everybody will then touch and feel the success. Initially, it's a concept. Initially, it's everybody says, okay, great to do. It's still on PowerPoint slides. It's still ideas. How do people see and relate to it is when it's real. How does it become real? When it's simpler, quicker, successful. And then not to lose sight in this entire journey that I just mentioned is the change management. Change management is also industry consultancy type of buzzword, but it's crucially important because people can have different fears. People think differently. No one individual thinks in the same fashion that you would have ideas. So change management and communication to the broader organization and people right up from the beginning is very, very important. Not to play down or minimize the impact, the value, and show people what's in it for them. That's crucial. Everybody has something to benefit from such automations. Humans would think in some cases that, robots are coming and replacing my job. But if the change management is done smartly and done well, they soon start to feel and believe that actually I can contribute more in the business by doing things that machines cannot do. So I can be a more productive, fun, valuable member of the organization. And therefore, the buy-in becomes even more broader in the company. That's, I think it was a long answer to your very important question, but I hope I did some justification.
That was really insightful. And so to close off here, what do you think is the future of work as automation becomes the norm?
It's future of work is somebody probably must have asked that questions 80 years ago when farming and agriculture was the 40% of the employment in this company. And I don't know who answered what at that time to that question, but suffice it to say, I think our lives are becoming more and more interesting in terms of the variety of things that we humans understand, know, and do. Um, Up until 10, 15 years ago, this forum that exists today was impossible to even imagine. So answering your question is very difficult. However, one could predict and one could at least not predict, one could assume that things are going to change for better. Humans will be doing more meaningful, more enriching, more quality, more fulfilling type of work. And these mundane robotic pieces or parts of work that humans do today would be something of the history books. Like you would not imagine today that in a car assembly line, the tires are being put by humans picking up from the floor. You just cannot even imagine that ever happened, let alone happen now. So work has evolved. We have, if you remove COVID situation for now, we had the lowest unemployment in the history of this country, 3.2%. What happened to all that industrialization, digitalization, electronification, robotics, artificial intelligence? Everything has come in and got absorbed. Population has increased. People are more enjoying the time and the information age with full employment. So I think it's just changing for better. That would be a short answer, but and also the inverse of that is that if we don't do this, we would be left behind. Companies would be left behind. They would sort of will have to keep running, not walking, and catching up game all the time. And in the process, if you run for a long time, you will be out of breath and you will be out of energy. And that should answer the questions to a lot of companies that if you don't adopt the new ways of doing things and automation and digitization and all these good things that are happening and embed into your business model, the information age that we live in and will continue to evolve and develop more and more sophisticated, there will be lots of, what was that video company that did not want to believe Netflix would ever take their business away?
Is it Blockbuster?
Yes, Blockbuster. There will be lots of blockbusters.
Okay, well, thank you. This was amazing, very insightful. I'm sure our audience learned a lot. I certainly did. And so one question that we have in the Q&A box, a lot of the RPA solution simply digitizes current processes that may itself be inefficient. Do you have any examples of reimagining processes before implementing any automation solution?
That was a brilliant question, and I thank you for that. I should have preempted that. So again, no shame in admitting that that's a great question. Should have been part of my opening speech. Yes, very, very important, smart question. I think, and I will take more than 40 seconds to answer that. Fundamentally, if you automate existing process the way it is, without thinking. Buzzwords, no buzzwords here, re-engineering, lean, Six Sigma, reimagining, leave everything aside, but you've got to look at it from fresh lens. Basic common sense, is it working? If we were to do it again, would we do it this way? Are we victims of existing systems constraints that we do the way we do? These are basic 4 or 5 questions that should be answered, asked, and brainstormed before a process is designed or written down for the RPA to be programmed. Brilliant. Absolutely. This is the opportunity, because once you have done this automation RPA, the chances are for a very long time, maybe 5 years, 10 years, you would not really be touching your core technology systems or investments, because this is so much easier. This is the presentation layer that sits on top of your existing technology. So presentation layers can be managed and manipulated easily, whereas the core system cannot. So this is the right time to fix nuances in your process that are not efficient.
Amazing. And on that note, let's end here. Thanks a lot for your time, Shafi. This was really great. Sean, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shafi. Thank you,
Absolutely
Shafi. That was
delighted to be
wonderful.
here. Yes.